guys, it's Danelle from Painted. Nothing like doing an unplanned live. To be completely honest with you, I just don't feel like doing the responsibilities I'm supposed to be doing today, and I just wanted to start crafting. And I was busy doing a project, and I thought, you know what? Last week I asked you guys about milk paint, and a significant amount of you basically told me you've never worked with milk paint before. I love working with milk paint. And so while I was, having fun with it myself, I thought I'm just going to show you guys what I'm doing. So while I'm working, if you want to tune in and watch while I do it, ask questions. I'll try to, look at the screen as much as I can while I'm working and answer your questions live. But basically what I'm going to show you, hopefully you guys are still there. What I'm going to do is show you how I'm creating the chippy look. So if you watched the live sale on Sunday, let me show you. I had these architectural salvage blocks. I know I'm really close, so it's probably hard. You can see them. They are plain, right? And I told you guys that if you wanted the plain ones, you could still paint them and, customize them, create them to look however you want. And basically, that's what I'm doing today. And I made one look like this. This is all chippy milk paint. This one did not come painted. It started off just like this, right? And I made it look like this. And so while I was painting it, I thought, you know what? This is the perfect time for me to go live and show you guys how I do this. Because so many of you have no clue how to work with milk paint that I thought it might be beneficial to someone. And if you don't need help with milk paint, tune off. This video then won't be for you. But if you are curious, maybe stay around and watch it. So I also want to show you one that I have done because, of course, I play with these things. So here's another one. This shows you what it looks like. This one I did in the Homestead House line in the color Bayberry. And I did it last night because I was testing the color because I never worked with it before. And this is what it looked like sealed with hemp oil. Okay, and I know I'm really close and I can't really back the camera up. So this looks to me like original paint. And what's really cool about milk paint is you can get that authentic old world finish. And if you can see, it has, crackle effect and chipping, and it just looks pretty awesome. Now I retail the Homestead line, which is that one, the Miss Mustard Seed line, and the new one by Fusion, which looks like that. All milk paint will always come, you guys, in a powder form, and you mix it with water in order to make the paint. So when you start off, it looks like this. It doesn't come with the little scooper. I just threw the scooper inside of there. And you typically make it with equal parts of powder to your water. I always recommend that you use warm water. I just think it mixes up better if you start with warm water. And I also like to add my water to my cup first, and then I go ahead and I add my paint. I think if you put the powder in first, and then you put your water, it gets like stuck to the bottom of your cup and it's just annoying. So I say put your water in first, then put your paint powder in, and then you go ahead and you stir it up. Now, milk paint is runny. So this consistency that's super runny, that's considered normal. So don't think if it's all runny like this that you mixed it wrong. This is what you should expect. Now, if you feel like it's super thin, you can add a little bit more powder. Some colors mix up a little bit differently. So if it's super thick, go ahead and just add a little bit more water too. You guys, it's not like something that you have to be freaking out about where if you added just a tiny bit too much powder, your recipe is all messed up. I don't want you to worry about that, okay? Now, milk paint is unpredictable unless you add in the bonding agent, and the bonding agent is what guarantees adhesion. Obviously, if you're going for the chippy look, which I am, I don't want it to stick, right? So I'm not going to add in the bonding agent because I want this chippy old world effect. So I'm going to show you guys how I did this on this one, and you can just watch me while I do it, okay? I don't know if comments are working. If somebody who's watching, because I can see that there are people watching, if one of you can just say hi, I just want to know if anyone can comment and if I'm going to be able to read them. So somebody, please, can you just say hi and then I'll know if comments are working? Because yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to read questions today. And I do want to let you guys know that this one has not been, oh, thank you, Kathy. Okay, great. Kathy, hi. Yvonne, hi. So thank you guys. Great. So this way, if people do have questions, I will be able to answer them. So that's wonderful. This one is actually still drying. Before I hit live, that's when I thought, you know what, guys, I'm going to just go live and do this with you guys. So this one's still actually, the water of the milk paint is still evaporating out of it. And I always say, don't ever seal anything until it's completely dry because you don't want to trap moisture inside of it. I do have this little heat gun. I just purchased this off Amazon, and actually when I'm done, I can throw a link in the video in case you guys want one of these. I will try to speed up dry time and use this. Now, if I'm painting a piece of furniture, you guys, I never use a heat gun. I only use this when I'm doing videos, just so that you guys don't have to sit around and watch me forever. So just know, if I'm doing a piece of furniture, I don't use heat guns. But what's cool about adding heat with milk paint is when you have the milk paint wet and you hit it with a high heat, that's how you can get this crackle effect, okay? So milk paint will naturally chip and like crackle depending on the substrate, so what the finish was previously. But if you hit it with heat, you can force this crackling. So I do like to own one of those if I want that crackle finish on my furniture. But if I don't want that crackle finish, then I'm not going to use that heat gun. So I hope that makes sense. But we will use it today just so that you guys can watch this and it doesn't take, you know, out an hour long to do this video. So I mixed up Hotel Robe. I'm using the Fusion Milk Paint today, and it's just like a bright white in the line. And then in order to get some guaranteed chippiness on this, because this honestly, it does have some sheen to it, but it's pretty dried out and it does have like an alligator finish already. My favorite resist for creating a chippy look is I love using, by Miss Mustard Seed, that's the brand, her beeswax finish. And I'm just gonna use my finger. I just take it and I'm just gonna rub it on, and where I rub it, it's going to create a resist and make my milk paint not want to adhere. And what I like to do is think about spots that are higher up. So like if this is a painted piece, think of spots that would naturally get bumped and worn. And if my piece already has a bunch of like markings on it, I'll actually use those as a guide. So for example, this one had like a lot of damage, like where you can see this, that's where it already had like missing spots. I hope that makes sense. So I kind of put the resist in the places where the damage was. So on this one, see how it has damage and stuff right here? I'm going to cheat and I'm going to put my resist on those spots as well. It's kind of like use the damage on your furniture also. Like if it's really bad, you might want to camouflage it with paint. But let's say it's just like worn areas. I kind of will highlight those worn areas if I'm going for that really old chippy look, because the beeswax is going to deepen them and like darken the wood undertone. So it's not going to look bad, but it's going to make it look authentic. And ask me questions and I will try to look. And if I miss it during this video, once I publish it, I'll also answer. Oh, I don't even know if you guys can see what I'm doing. Before I did the other one, because this wood is so dark, I wasn't sure if I was going to get bleed through, where like the tannins of this dark stain would kind of like make it get discolored. And I thought, well, it's small. And I always tell people to do like a little test spot, but I was lazy and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. It didn't get any bleed through, which is great, but let's pretend it did. What I would have had to do, in case that would have happened, is allow it to dry completely and then take like the odorless solvent and wipe off all this stuff, the beeswax, let that then completely dry and clean it. And then I would have to use like a shellac and shellac this thing and then go ahead and paint. Otherwise, the tannins would keep bleeding through. No matter how many coats of milk paint I put on, I would get like that nasty pink or brown look coming through. But thankfully, these things did not get bleed through. But I've had some dark pieces that definitely did. Okay. Let's see. I kind of want to look at the phone too, but I'm just going to kind of throw this stuff wherever. I like to kind of focus like on the edges. Now you can apply it with a brush too. Just make sure that if you do use a brush, you keep that brush separate so that you don't then use it for your paint, because it is oil. This is like an oil-based product, so you don't want to then use it for paint or else your paint's going to resist. Here's a tip. I always try to mark brushes like this is an oil brush, so I don't ever use it for paint. I put like a little coat on it for myself. Okay. So my paint obviously has rested for a long time. I always want to just give it a stir again. So anything that has settled on the bottom, I can reincorporate it. And then the beauty with milk paint is you can use a cheap brush. You don't have to use a super expensive brush because milk paint will self-level. It's not going to show brush strokes or anything. So you don't have to have like super wonderful tools, which that's kind of nice too. So I'm just using a natural bristle brush, and a lot of times I do like using round brushes for milk paint, but I just grabbed what I had available in this back room, and this was the one I had. So that's what I'm using today. Let's see. Oh, this thing's loose. I don't think I can tighten it. I'm gonna just have to slide you guys. And don't mind, check out my little Goodwill Lazy Susan. And it was half price sticker day, so I got this thing for $2. And I love it. Okay. But I want to show you guys how runny this stuff, well, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell, but it's runny. I always tell people too, like, if you know for sure you're going to be distressing a piece, you don't have to go solid opaque coverage and try to fill in all the nooks and crannies if you know you're going to like heavily distress an area. So like instead of like trying to push my brush into all those grooves, I might just kind of dry brush over some of them because I want some of that to stay dark. So I just might, go a little bit lighter over some of those some of those detail parts. And where you see it beating up, that's where that resist is. See how it's like not soaking in? That's because the beeswax hemp is making it resist. Okay, I didn't want to forget to tell you guys this, so while I'm letting that a little bit start to dry, I just discovered today, coolest thing ever. You might be wondering why I have the Redesign by Prima, the scraper, or I'm sorry, the transfer tool sitting here. I just discovered today this thing works absolutely amazing for scraping your chippy milk paint without damaging and leaving like metal scratch marks and rubbing marks on your milk painted surface. Because typically when I want to force chipping, I would use like a Venetian plaster scraper, and then sometimes I would get like gray scrape marks. This is going to be like my new force chipping scraper. So if you are a transfer person and you already own one of these, I highly suggest you bust it out and try it with your chippy milk paint. Okay, let me see. I have the tripod in the way, if I can get this to go. It's obviously not dried completely, but I just want it dry enough that I can put my second layer of milk paint on. Now on furniture, I always warn my customers too that the first coat of milk paint does not look the most attractive, so just know that. And like I said, I'm not going for solid opaque coverage because I do want this to look all chippy and distressed, so that's why I'm kind of dry brushing a little bit over some areas. I just hope I put enough of that resist on that I can get some cool chipping. When you do paint a piece of furniture, I do know some people basically paint a piece of furniture and they have it like done in one day and sealed up in one day. I don't know. I consider myself a little bit more old school. I like to paint my piece of furniture and allow it to dry overnight and then come back the next day and seal it. I just feel, especially with milk paint, I want all that water to evaporate out. And especially depending on where you're located and where you live with humidity levels, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the water to evaporate out of your paint, but if you allow it to dry overnight, then when you wake up that next morning, you're pretty much guaranteed that all the water has evaporated out, because you might go to bed and be like, okay, this thing, it didn't chip, right? But then you wake up the next morning and you're like, holy heck. And then you see all this like awesome chippiness that's happening on your piece that when you went to bed, you didn't see. And that's just because a lot more of the water was able to evaporate overnight. And when the water evaporates, basically because there's no binding agents in the milk paint, that's how we get that cool chippy effect. So I always tell people too, be a little bit patient with the milk paint, because in order to get the flaking, you have to give it time to dry. So that's another thing too. When I'm doing a video live, it might look a little bit different right now than what it's going to look like in 2 hours. So I'll try my best with speeding up the dry time with the tool. But if it does look different in, a couple hours, I can also post a picture. Okay, I'm going to try to speed it up for you guys. If I can find the on button, there we go. Oh, sorry, my big arm's in the way. Now let's see. I want you guys to see that cool crackle effect that's happening. See that? How it's crackling because I'm putting the heat right on top of it? That's how you get the crackle look. Well, here. Okay, I don't know if you guys can hear me. If I hold the heat gun directly on top of where it's super wet, that's how I'm getting that crackle look, okay? Okay, so this is still very wet. I'm gonna basically, we're gonna try to multitask together while this dries some more. And one thing you can do to know if your paint is still really wet or holding moisture, obviously it has to cool down because I just hit it with heat. But if you touch your surface and it feels cold, which actually, even though I just turned my heat off, if I put my hand on this, it's still cool. That means that water is still evaporating out of my surface. And that means basically it's not cured. It's not, it's still wet inside. So I'm going to let this one dry a little bit more because it's not going to chip until the water is out of the paint. And while that one's drying, I'm going to show you how to seal this one, because milk paint is porous, and in order to stop it from chipping any further, we have to put a top coat on it. This is not like Fusion mineral paint where it has a built-in top coat. Milk paint, you want to seal it. Now, technically, this is wall decor, or I could put it on a shelf, so do I have to seal it? No one's going to be touching it, but I figured, you know what, I'm going to just show you guys how to seal it anyways. So I decided to use the Furniture Wax in Clear by Miss Mustard Seed. First, you want to make sure you don't have any chippy pieces, just so that you don't contaminate your wax. And you can scoop your wax like onto a paper plate or something. So I'm just going to take my brush and see how I got little flakes coming off. Just make sure no more little flakes. Sorry, I'm so close to you guys. My tripod has, it's broken on a part, so it's not holding up the camera to angle you better. Okay. So the clear wax looks like this. And I probably should take a little scoop out. Here we go. I'm just going to take a little bit, see how, like a little bit like that, and I'm just going to load it onto my brush. Normally I would put it on a paper plate, but of course I don't have one near me. And now I'm just going to work it into my surface and massage it in. It's hard to see on this white color, but usually you can kind of tell where you've gone with the clear wax because it deepens your color just a tiny bit and it brings out the true color of the milk paint. Now with whites, it's a little bit hard to see, but if you were working with a different color, you would just notice it kind of just richens the color up a little bit. I could have also used hemp oil to seal this, or Tough Coat would have worked as well too. Now if it was super duper chippy, Tough Coat would have probably been the best option because it's a poly and I wouldn't have had to be so aggressive with like mushing the wax in. But Tough Coat's not recommended like over the darker colors because it can look all hazy. So I like to use Polyvine's Wax Finish Varnish over Chippy Milk Paint because that one I can use over both light and dark colors. Okay, and that's how easy it is to wax. And usually I like to let the wax sit for like, a couple minutes and kind of just set up a little bit. But you do have to wipe the excess wax off. If you don't wipe it off, it will feel sticky, and you don't want that. And also, you're going to need to clean your wax brush too. Okay. Does anyone have any questions while I'm letting this set up a little bit? I don't even know if I can, yeah, I can't scroll back to see if there was, oh, maybe I can. I'm going to just look to see if there were any questions. I do see a lot of people are watching, so that's pretty awesome. Thank you guys for joining. And if you're tuning in late, I just decided I felt like crafting and doing absolutely probably not what I should be doing today. I have so many things on my to-do list, but none of them looked fun, and obviously this is fun for me, so I chose to do this instead. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and wipe it back. I like to use the blue shop towels because they're lint-free. If you do use like an old t-shirt, I always tell people, if you're working with white, choose like a white lint-free t-shirt. Let's say you were working with black, choose like a dark black lint-free t-shirt because if you're using old t-shirts or old socks, I don't care what you say, they will leave some little fuzzies. So at least use one that matches the color paint you're working with. You'll thank me for that tip later. Especially on a sharp piece like this that has like all these pointy stuff, you know, it's gonna rip up, like it's ripping my cloth apart too. And I had to pull nails out of this thing. Okay, so this is what it looks like waxed. And now let's take a look at the one that is drying. It's still pretty cold, but let me see if any of it, because of course, oh yeah, you can see some of it is chipping. I'm going to have to force some of it. Where I applied the the resist, my paint is not adhering. It didn't flake off as awesome as I was hoping it would with like the other one did. The other one, it just peeled up. But keep in mind, you know, I walked away and came back like an hour later and looked at it. And that's what made me decide to do the video with you guys. I think if I were to walk away from this one and, you know, come back live in like an hour, it would probably be all buckled up as well. Because you can see how it's already doing it like right here. Can you guys see that? Where I put that hemp, where I put this, not hemp, I'm sorry. Where I put this stuff, the beeswax finish, it's making the hotel robe paint not adhere. And that's why it's getting that chippy look. But the paint's not completely dry, so it's a little bit harder, but I can still kind of force it a little bit because I kind of know where I went. But if I let it dry more, it's going to be easier. But you guys still get you guys get how to do it, I think. If you have questions, pop them in, but I'm going to just start working on it. Let me move this out of my way. Now every milk painter should have one of these, I'm telling you. No nasty gray marks ever on my white paint. Can you guys see how cool that is? Give me some thumbs up or something if you guys can see it on your end as great as I can see it on my end. Oh, good. Thank you, whoever did that. Now, like I said, if I were to walk away, I probably wouldn't have to use the scraper as much because I think once the water completely evaporated out, a lot of this chipping would naturally occur where I put the beeswax resist. But because I'm trying to do it live and speed up the process, I might have to throw some more heat on it because the paint's still pretty wet. Okay, now I think you guys will get to see what I'm talking about. Do you see how as soon as I dried up the area that was super wet, do you see how now it's starting to flake up? This is what happens when all the water evaporates out of the paint. As soon as there's no more water to make it adhere, because it has that resist on it and there's no bonding agent forcing it to attach, now, I can probably do it with just my finger, yeah. Now the paint can naturally just flake off with like no force whatsoever. Right here, same thing. Before it wasn't budging, but as soon as I used that heat gun and I made the paint, I took all the water out of it, now I can get it out. I can get the paint to loosen up. But obviously when the paint's wet, it's not gonna budge. Okay? So I'm going to just let this thing completely dry. So probably in about another, I don't know, at least definitely in an hour, it's going to be completely dry. And then whatever is going to adhere is going to be stuck, and whatever is not going to adhere, I can just take, you know, a brush, wipe it loose, and then this one too is going to be ready to be sealed up. Let me hold the camera so you can see. But how cool is that? This piece looks to me like an authentic old architectural salvage piece that has its old white chippy paint that you guys would probably never guess has just recently been painted within the last hour. And that's all just using milk paint. Okay? I hope that kind of maybe takes a little bit of intimidation out of the thought of using milk paint, and also shows you like you can do exactly what I just did on a piece of furniture, get this super cool like farmhouse old world finish with very little, I don't know, little work, I guess. Okay? If anyone has any questions, please pop them in the comments and I'll definitely look at this post later, and I'll also put some pictures up. Have a wonderful rest of your day, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.